Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today I am doing Season 7 of Monk, which went on from July 2008 to February 2009. Okay, well, this is there are 16 episodes and I am ranking them last to the first.
Well, just what did you think about the season? Because,
Well,
last season was really good.
I thought this season was a mixed bag. When I rank these things, which remember I don't like ranking,
Too
but
bad.
Especially this series is so good, and it's really hard to rank when they're all really good, which mostly they have been. But this season was a mixed bag, like I said. And I had a hard time finding ones that were like outstanding in every way. And as usual, now I wouldn't rank any, I told Marco this and he kind of had a fit, but I wouldn't rank any of these below a C just because, I mean, they cannot be that great, but the creativity that goes into the episodes is just amazing. And it's they have a what would you call it, a talent for being able to find everyday activities or things that people deal with and making something special out of them, making an episode, making a mystery, turning it into a mystery. And that's just, I think that's amazing. I really do. And I hope that it's been reported that they're making a movie. And
Well, you don't even mention that. Don't even talk about that yet because you don't know what happens next season. So you'll want to wait until you talk about I'd like to see this. I wouldn't like to see that in the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
It's really
well. It would be. I don't even know what to say. It's like this is why I told Marco. For the most part, I have no expectations about anything because I try not to watch trailers, and I try to just ignore when they report things. Well, if I'll see it and then I forget about it because I have so many things going on. I can't just sit and obsess about everything I read and see except maybe politics. But anyway.
Well, I don't like watching trailers, but they just pop up all over the place.
I know, on YouTube especially. You watch YouTube and all of a sudden, boom.
And they'll start playing.
And you have to press skip ad.
They'll show pictures of the trailers all over the place. They'll have articles saying, oh, the trailer showed this surprise moment. And it's like, what?
Okay, well, another thing, too, about this season was that, unfortunately, during the making of the season, the actor who played Dr. Kroger, who was Monk's psychiatrist, and now, when a person, I worked in mental health just like for a couple years at the University of Illinois, and the student mental health department. And, people get somebody they like to go to. They're talking to them, revealing their innermost thoughts, fears, stresses. And it's a very important person to them because they can't talk to anybody else like that. And this was Mr. Monk's psychiatrist, and he passed away. He had a heart attack, and he died. And it was, of course, it was unexpected. And so we don't know exactly what happened, but we don't know if they made the episode and then he died.
Yeah, I tried doing some research, but I couldn't find it out, and Safi couldn't either, so...
Well, they didn't even. When I was just reading, I want to know when this series, the season, when it aired, and they didn't say a word about it. And Marco told me, though. And so they might have had the episode all planned out. They filmed it, whatever. I don't know. And Dr. Kroger, they changed it because Dr. Kroger died. And it was inputted into the thinking that Monk did the things that he did in response to grieving over Dr. Kroger's death and the loss of having his psychiatrist, the person he'd been going to for years, as a confidant. So what we don't know, but anyway, the very first episode deals with that, and at the end of the show, of course, in the credits they put that in memory of, and I think it's Stanley Kramer,
I guess.
Whatever, and so I thought that was really sad because, I mean, that doesn't happen very often, and we have heard of that happening. I think this past year there was some show where somebody passed away during the making.
I really think that instead of just rushing through that storyline in this episode, I think that they should have had it where he doesn't have a psychiatrist the whole season because he's mourning over Dr. Kroger, and then the finale would be him getting the new psychiatrist.
I don't know. See, if it was somebody as bad as him.
Well, that would be the point, is that, like, it would be a really different season because it would be like, I don't know,
like...
like...
you mean a finale of this season?
Yeah. Like, switch it around. Instead of being the first episode where they're just like, oh, let's get it out of the way, have it be at the end of the season so that it's more meaningful and it takes time to happen.
Marco was not thrilled with the person they picked to replace him.
Well, it's the fact that they just replaced him in like 2 seconds. It's like, would somebody as difficult as Monk really be this easily able to just have this new guy be his therapist?
It would be a miracle because people... I mean, I would advise this to anybody that if you wanted to have a therapist, that you doctor shop. Which means that if you go to one, you're really not satisfied, you might try another couple and to see which one would be the best fit for you. Because, I mean, for just personal experience, not all psychiatrists and psychologists are created equal. I mean, there's just some not good ones out there, and they just don't fit. You know, you have to have one that fits your personality, and he's so bad, though, he has to have somebody. But there's another episode that kind of deals with this, and that'll come up. I'll tell you. Okay, I better go on now.
Well, we're talking about the worst episode that you put.
Well, in fact, the very first episode, which is where they deal with Dr. Kroger's death, it's called Mr. Monk Buys a House, and I thought it was the worst one, because I thought it was stupid and I thought it was over the top. And what happens is, I have to say this, well, Monk, there's this little girl and she's learning how to play the piano, and she's learned this one song and she's been practicing over and over and over again. And this is one thing that was stupid and never would happen, but she would practice for hours, and that just from one song. And as a beginner, a kid, no way I did that. I mean, I ended up playing violin all throughout, through college and everything. And when you're first starting out, it's not even good. They only want you to practice an hour or something, if you can even get a child to do that. They wouldn't be practicing all day for hours and hours. They have to go to school, for one thing, and even if they homeschool, they'd have to be doing other things. And it just wouldn't. So that right there is a problem. And so he gets sick of it. He gets sick of that song. But another thing about the song that she plays, it's, was it Chopin?
I don't know.
I don't know. And
It reminds him of Dr. Kroger.
Because they played that song and similar and other tunes from the same classical composer when he would go there.
So then he rushes and buys a house and also looks for a new therapist. And when he moves into his house, he notices there's like a small problem that he needs to take care of. And he gets something at the hardware store where he meets the villain, who's this guy, and he's a handyman, and he's gonna help Monk fix his house. And then he comes there and he's just like tearing the entire house to shreds,
little by little, but then it just be a great expansive thing.
It's really funny,
knocking down walls and just tearing the floor and tearing the walls and tearing the ceiling and tearing the lights. I mean, just everything, and just it was just getting to be like he was destroying the house, and he was letting him do it. I mean, he was thinking, and that was another weird thing too. Nobody would let somebody do that.
And it's like, why? What's going on? Well, there's a treasure in the house somewhere, and it was hidden there, and they were trying to find it. And the last guy who lived there, I guess, I can't remember.
He worked for the San Francisco Treasury, Federal Treasury, and he took the paper. He could get, what was it? He took the paper so they could actually make money because he had the real paper. But anyway,
he died. He
passed
got murdered.
away. He got murdered by the housekeeper, who was the nurse. His nurse. She pulled him up the stairs, and then she kind of tipped the wheelchair he was in, and he went down the stairs. He fell in the stairs, and he probably broke his neck or whatever. And she was the bad guy's girlfriend, so they were in on it together. So it's just, I thought that was just far-fetched, and the fact that the little girl was playing so much as a beginner never happened. And then the guy coming in and saying, oh, well, there's mold up here, and there's rot here, and you have to do this, and the house was like a war zone. But he figured out the mystery and everything, and they barely got out of there. I mean, they were he and Natalie were chained up to the bathtub and everything, and he ends up moving back to his same old apartment. And then the girl's playing again, and he's like, he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, he has to live with it.
And he has he gets a new therapist, right? He got him at that episode. His name is Dr. Bell.
Really, really fast.
Marco didn't care for the actor, but he's the one who was in, oh God, he's been in a lot of things. He's part Spanish, and he
got him just as fast as you get a Dorito taco at Taco Bell.
Yeah, and that was highly unusual.
Yeah.
Believe me. That's why I was talking about Dr. Shum. Okay, so anyway, I ranked that last, because like I said, it was over the top. They practically destroy the house he just bought, and the girl playing so much and she's a beginner, and the only thing I liked about it was I think his name is Brad, and I can't think his last. He's really tall, and he was in that Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond or something.
What's your next episode,
anyway,
Safi?
My next one is 15, and is okay. Mr. Monk falls in love.
Oh.
And this was about he's working on a case, and there's this woman, and she's from Romania maybe, and he instantly falls in love with her. He's fascinated with her, and it's like they get on course to be, they could be a couple, And because he's really, I mean, he's ready, he's playing around with this ring and everything, because he still wears his wedding ring.
But you know that they're going to do the thing that they did in season 1 and season 3, or was it season 2, where they give him a love interest, and then they're like, no, never mind.
Yeah.
And then Natalie in season 6, never mind. Never mind. Safi.
Okay,
So
well, so anyway, it was like...
She's with him. I'm gonna help you summarize, because you can't just go through these whole episodes.
No, I didn't want to do that. I just want to make sure the last one, though, because it's the very first episode of the season, so...
He gets with this woman, and it turns out that she's suspected of murdering a cab driver, and then he's just adamant that she did not do it, and they think, it's because he's in love with her, that he's just protecting her, but then it turns out that her mom is actually the killer, and then when the mom goes to prison, she gets mad because apparently she wanted to take the fall for her mom. And so she leaves Monk and runs away from him, and it's just like, oh, what a waste of an episode.
Well, and also, right. Well, there were two things that I hated about, too. The murderer was killed with a hat pin. And I would like to know, in this country, how many people use a hat pin. I mean, those are very old-fashioned. I don't even know if you could buy a modern hat pin. I mean, they have really beautiful hat pins, but, I mean, this is a pin, a long pin with an ornate piece at the end that you stick in your hat. I guess, like if you had a bun on your head, of like a big wad of hair, that when you stick the pin into the hat, it goes into the hair. But if not, it would go into your head, and you would be miserable to have this pin sticking in your head. So anyway, her mother, it would make sense. She was from Romania. She was visiting her daughter, I guess. And she was old school, and she wore hats. This woman who was accused, the daughter, who Mr. Monk had a crush on, she never even wore a hat. And that was another thing. Nobody even questioned that. They're saying she did it, everything fit that she did it, but she never even wore hats. So what's she doing? Carrying around a hat pin, an antique hat pin to stab people with? I mean, come on, really? I didn't like that part. And so I put that. In fact, it was hard. It was hard to mix either Falls in Love, because that's the name of the episode. It's episode 6 in the series, with Mr. Monk buys a house. It's like they were interchangeable. They were both not good. Okay, my number 14 episode was number 3 and in the series, and it's called Mr. Monk Gets Lotto Fever. And I didn't care for this either, because there wasn't much to it, but it's still creative, but in a very small way. But the only reason why I thought it was a good thing, because a lot of people play the lotto, and this kind of helped you understand how it works. When they do the balls, and the balls knock around in this big empty bin, and then they press a button, and then each ball goes up into this line of 6 balls, or so how many?
The balls are confusing to you.
The numbers, and so, and whatever number Natalie. It is the number for the night. And Natalie got to be the lotto girl, because the real one the original one got killed.
Yeah, Natalie became the ball girl.
Yeah, and so both her and Monk had terrible behavior.
Yeah.
He stopped short of calling her a bimbo.
Well, I don't blame him, because she gets so out of character this episode that she is like Sharona, and she is just not her character at all. And then Monk is not his character at all. So it almost felt like that's the problem with the show sometimes. It's like, oh, look, we can do a lotto episode. Let's just plug the characters in this way. They don't really think about, tailoring a story around the characters, which is weird, because it'd be easy. I mean, there's hardly any characters, so it wouldn't be that hard to write a story tailored around characters, as opposed to like Avengers 3.
Yeah, so that's why it's ranked lower, and it's called Mr. Monk Gets Lotto Fever. Okay, my next one was, this is number 13. Remember, we're going from the bottom to the top. And as Mr. Monk takes a punch, and it really, literally is, he did take a punch at the end accidentally. He got knocked in the face and knocked him on the floor. But this has Robert Loggia, and he's like a boxer manager, and James Lesher, or Leisher, whatever, he's the boxer. He was really a good act. Both of them are excellent actors, but the mystery really wasn't very good. That's the only thing. It looked like that somebody was trying to kill the boxer, and so they wanted Monk to watch him, and it just wasn't a very good. But I really liked the visiting actors, and the boxer guy, James Lesher. He was just very affable and easygoing, and he just didn't seem like he had to worry about anything. And then Robert Loggia he's classic. He's a classic actor. He's been in a lot of stuff, a lot of cop shows, and I think he's done military, he plays a soldier and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, my next one is 12, and it was episode 15, and it was Mr. Monk and the Magician. Now, right off the bat, the problem with this episode is that one of the main characters, who is the neighbor of Monk, it's Kevin Dorfman. He talks all the time. He kind of drives him crazy, but he's very understanding. He's very nice and kind, and to them, they really like him, even though he kind of drives them nuts because he just constantly talks. But he gets killed, and he gets killed by this magician. And the thing about this, I didn't like that he got killed. I thought if he was going to get killed off, why didn't they wait to the final episode? Or why did they wait to this is the next to the last season. Now, it could be they didn't know that this is going to be next to the last season. But that, still, why would that matter?
But even then, it just screams the typical thing where these writers just do not want any other characters except for Monk, Randy, Captain, and Natalie.
Yeah, that's it. And that's really unfortunate, because he didn't play in every episode.
No.
They just kind of sprinkled him in like a good herb or something, like in a dish. And he always did really well. And what happened was, the magician goes to Las Vegas. He says to he and his fiancée, she is his helper, his assistant, and they get engaged to be married. And what happens is, he has been, every time he goes to I don't know, Europe or to the middle, or to the Far East, he brings home heroin and all of his magic equipment. And there's a lot of secret compartments and places that can be stored. And so his luggage is heavier than when he went there. And so Kevin is his accountant, and he finds that out, and he tells him. So he thinks he should, and that's why he killed him. And so this is a very sad episode, and Mr. Monk and Natalie want to find the killer, and Mr. Monk right away knows it's him. And so this guy, the thing I did like about the episode, and that's why it's not way down at the bottom, because I could have been really mad about Kevin being killed off. The thing I liked about the guy who plays the magician, he is really good at what he does. And I thought he was a real magician. In other words, they had gotten like somebody who's a magician that I didn't know about, and who's famous, and they got him to do this role for the show. And Marco told me the things that he does has nothing to do with being a magician. So I don't know, but he was really good. So I thought he was the real deal because he's so good at it. And I don't know if he's been a magician before, like to pay his bills, as a struggling actor. And, like he was being a magician, but he really wanted to be an actor. Or I don't know, but he did really good.
He's a perfect magician.
He is perfect. And he's British. Or he has an accent, like a British accent. And so he's very charming, but he's also kind of a bully, and he's also distinctive. What happened was when Kevin had to take his place while he went to Las Vegas, and Kevin also does magic tricks. The show was over. Mr. Monk went to get him because he's waiting and waiting. And then this man wearing a maintenance outfit is leaving, and the magician's guys. He's extremely tall. He's like about 7 feet tall. He's really tall. He has really big hands, and he does his things with his 2 fingers to point out something instead of saying, "Oh, he's over there," and you use a pointy finger. He used 2 fingers, and Monk remembered that, and he, even though he's dressed as a maintenance man. He knew at the very end when he saw him do it as who he was. He knew that was the guy. But anyway, that was my number 12. Okay, now we're on 11. And this is the final episode of the season, episode 16. And it was... I didn't like it because, well, for one thing, what happens was Monk is in the garage where Trudy got killed. They want to tear it down. They want to make a park for kids in the middle of the city, and that's actually a good thing, except it cuts down on parking. But anyway, availability, parking availability. But with San Francisco, if you've ever been there, they have lots of public transportation. So, they have those streetcars and, buses, cabs, Uber, all that stuff. You don't really, and also you just like to walk around. It's really cool. So anyway, it opens up with Monk has chained himself to this big pillar. He doesn't want it torn down because that's where Trudy was killed, and he says it's a crime scene, and he doesn't want it to be torn down because he could still find more clues. But so this city councilwoman says, okay, we'll take another vote on it because now I'm not sure about it, and we can do that if one of us is unsure about our vote, because they had already voted to tear it down. So she put a stop on it, and finally, so they get him out of there, of course, and it ends up she gets murdered, and he has to figure out the murder. But in the meantime, it was all about this vote, and he got this secretary who was pregnant, and he said terrible things about her at the end. When he was saying who the murderer was and what happened.
Yeah, it was very forced because he had already achieved his victory in getting the vote passed, and then he does the summation where he insults her
really badly.
And it's like, this is very forced right here.
Yeah.
It's like it was a contrived scenario.
It was kind of contrived.
And it was terrible.
And I really didn't like that because, I don't think she really was pregnant, although she really did look pregnant. Usually they have the pillow thing, but she really looked pregnant. But anyway, I didn't like what he said, and I thought he was full of himself. And his psychiatrist, too, had said, do you really think after all these years you're still going to find a clue there in that garage? And he said, that's not, you're not going to find anything. And I think he realizes that. He said, well, it's just the last thing that she saw before she died. Well, I don't know. I think that's queer. I don't like that. I just didn't like his attitude about with the pregnant woman who he got to vote his way. She was like a proxy. She was voting for the councilwoman by proxy. That's what it's called. And so in the end, it was a kind of a good thing because it made me... We watched the show Dahmer, and what they wanted to do where all those people died in his apartment, they wanted it torn down, which didn't they tear it down anyway, and build a park and dedicate it to all the victims. Well, this parking garage, they were going to tear it down, and they were going to name the park the Trudy Monk Memorial Park or something like that. And I thought that was nice. And a nice way to end it, even though it wasn't that great of an episode. But it was okay. So it was it was a good mystery. But just his insulting the pregnant woman, I didn't care for that. And so that was 11. Okay, 10. Okay, now this is where I kind of, right around here is really messy. Okay, I think my number 10 is Mr. Monk gets hypnotized. And what happens is, what's his name? The other sick guy, Harold, right? He has to, of course, he had to find a new psychiatrist too. Well, what he did, he found a hypnotist. And so what happens is this hypnotist... This is a bad thing about the episode is I learned a long time ago that when you get hypnotized, you're just not a walking zombie, okay? If you do whatever they ask you to do while you're under hypnosis, it's because you want to do it. And it may not be very overt, but it's underneath. If you didn't want to do it, you wouldn't do it. I learned that a long time ago. So anyway, Harold was like so easygoing and free, and he was just like, dancing around. He even got arrested for running around with no clothes on, which was kind of funny. And so Mr. Monk decided he would do that too, and his psychiatrist had warned him, and he talked to the other people too. Natalie, the captain, Randy, when he did get hypnotized, it was not going to last. Something will jar, because he knows it's not right, and something will jar him back to reality. And what happened was the hypnotist set him to when he was, I don't know, Marco, what was he, 5 or something? And so he's going around, and he's such a he's a smart boy and a smart adult. He knew that he would already chewed gum, like was stuck on the bottom. This was the final clue to the mystery, and ABC gum, because Randy was making gum. Oh God. And there was just a problem with that. It was another kind of over the top. And but the Harold thing... It
was a stupid episode.
Yeah, and Harold was funny. It was funny with him. And he knocked out of it because he went to a playground, and he was sitting there trying to swing or something, and all these other kids were there, and their helicopter parents were having a fit. And they all took their kids away. And he was really upset, and he looked in this... plaque or something that was at the park, and he could see himself. He could see he was an adult, and then that kind of knocked into him that he was not who he was back to what he was before, an adult. And so and his psychiatrist, Dr. Bell, had told the others that would happen. So anyway, there was a mystery with that, and so he figures it out. But he knew who the bad person was even when he was a little boy, so I thought that was funny. So, okay, now this is where it's kind of messy. So that was number 10. And number 9 is okay, Mr. Monk and the Miracle. And I did not like this because I just thought it was a little bit too much. It was very unrealistic. And even the mystery, what happens is this pharmacist assistant, he kills him because I think he's stealing money from him, or he did steal a bunch of money at once from him, and so he killed him, and he hides the body under this fountain. And then it's a very, I can't even describe it, but the fountain starts about 11 years later producing these results where you go there and you take, because they're going to renovate the place and they're going to rip the fountain out and redo it around there. Maybe they're going to put it back, but they've got to rip it out. Well, the body's under there and he doesn't want anybody to discover it. So somehow it's weird with their medications, people's medications. People go there and they take a drink from the fountain. They're instantly cured of whatever ailment they have. And so everybody's going there, and the captain's had a bad back, and he goes there, and his pills aren't working, and that's the key. And he goes to the fountain, he drinks from the fountain, he's instantly changed the next day. He gets up from sleeping, and his back has been, he's been walking with a cane, he's been horribly hurt and miserable. And so he believes in the miracle too, and he's so, and this is another thing I didn't like about the episode, was that he decides he's going to be a monk, and Marco explains to me that this is a way for them to make a character arc in which they change his character, where he's been kind of lost. He got a divorce and wasn't happy about it. Then his girlfriend murdered somebody and she went to prison, so he's been really messed up. And this kind of changed him for the better, and like a character arc and a positive one. And so that I could see that. I could understand that. But I didn't care for it. I thought it was just too much. This pharmacist, if somebody would go there and they would take their pills, they said, these are no good, they're not working for me. I went to this fountain changed me. And somebody painted this thing on my door, and it meant for me to go to the fountain and get this water, and then I was instantly cured, so I don't need this medication. And he was changing their medication. He was putting sugar pills in it. So, yeah, when they took it, it wouldn't work. And so, but see, I still don't get the whole, it's just weird and stupid. I don't like it. Okay, but it's I did have it at number 9. Okay, number 8 is Mr. Monk and the Lady Next Door. And this is Gina Rowlands. And if you know who that is, you know, she's this famous actress. She's a very strong personality. And he meets her and at an intersection, and she acts like his mother. I mean, she treats him like he's her son. So this positive relationship through the whole thing. And then she gets suspected of being related, in fact, the mother to this boy. Even though her son died, her husband's dead, her son was a little baby when he died, or was a little kid. And she swears to that, and Monk doesn't believe her. He thinks she's the mother to this murderer, and he accuses her. And it's really weird. It's like he had this personality change where he was evil, and he was horrible to her. He said terrible things. And finally, Natalie, and he's interviewing her in the interrogation room, and Natalie comes in there and says, no, his real mother just came to pick him up because he was let go. They didn't have enough evidence, or he was on bail or something. I think they didn't have enough evidence. And so then they're out of falling out, and he figures out, he finally gets all the evidence that that guy is the killer. And then she moves out. So Marco reminded me that she's another character that could have been there, and nope, they got rid of her. So Anyway, that was number 8. And then number 7 is Mr. Monk and the Other Brother. And if you recall from I think it was the previous season or before, where his dad comes and he gets a ticket, he drives a truck, and he says he had the son, and he says he goes on and on how great he is, but he's really a bad boy. He's a crook. Well, he gets accused and he's in prison. And it's the actor, I didn't write the name down, but I really liked this actor. He's a comedian, and he's really good. And he is younger than the guy who plays Monk, I can tell. And I thought he was really good. He's so much different, but he's kind of like a con man. He lies and he cheats people, but he's not a mean person. He's not a killer. He's been accused of murder, and so Monk has to prove his innocence. And he hides out at Monk's because he escapes from prison, and kind of like the Shawshank Redemption kind of escape. And so anyway, I thought that was pretty good. I really like this actor. He's been in a lot of funny things, and I thought it was different. And they showed a couple little scenes from what is it? It was a horror story about this guy who gets shrunken down to the size of like a little figure, and I can't think of the name, but they actually, the brother was staying up to watch it because he said lights were out at 9 o'clock in prison, and and it was a treat for him to stay up past 9 o'clock and watch something, and it was something that their dad watched, and Monk had remembered that too from when he was a kid. So they watched that for a little while, and then Monk found out he lied about something else, and he wanted to send him back to prison, but he didn't. He solved the mystery, but then he agreed if he solved the mystery, he'd have to go back to prison and finish his time. So that all works out. Okay, that was, I want to make sure, I think that was number 7. No, that was number... Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. Okay, number 6 is the 100th episode. And this really was the 100th episode. And so they showed a mixture of characters that he had found guilty of a crime and interviewed them. They interviewed his wife when she played the part of the airline person. Can't think of what they're called. And that she was afraid to fly anymore, and he drove her crazy. And anyway, what they do is, it's this television show, and it's kind of like a report about Mr. Monk and how he is such a good crime solver, and they're working on this case, and if he's successful, it'll be his 100th successful case. And so it ends up, there's been 3 murders of 3 women, and then there's this other murder, and somebody else does these 3 murders, but it ends up the guy who makes this television show, he's the moderator. They did a really good job putting this together. If it wasn't all fake, it was really good. It was just like the guy who played the magician. He really wasn't a magician, but this was like a real crime show that they did, and the guy who moderates it, he murdered the 4th girl, and he figured that out, and that's it. But they just showed all these. They showed Ambrose, his brother, a couple times, and so that was good. They didn't show the other brother though. So it could be because he hadn't been on yet. I can't see. That was episode 7 in the series. And the other brother, they didn't, because he was in episode 10. So that came after. Okay, this is my number 5. Number 5 is Mr. Monk and the Bully. And this is something a lot of people can relate to. Sometime in their lives, they've confronted a bully. And when he was in 7th grade, this guy they would lock him up in the bathroom, and he would shove his face down the toilet, and they called it a swirly. And so as an adult, this bully calls on him because he's heard about Mr. Monk and what a great detective he is. And he says his wife's been stepping out on him, and he wants to investigate her and to see if she is. And they find evidence that looks like she did, but apparently it is her twin sister who has just magically appeared. And that's the bad person. The villain is the sister, not stepsister, the twin sister who has popped up. And that was very creative, very, very creative. And but the thing is that he's worried about this bully. He didn't want to take the case, didn't want to go anywhere near him, because he thought as an adult, they're in their 40s or whatever, he was going to do it to him again, and wanted to put his head in the toilet. And it's just, I didn't believe that. I just didn't believe it. That's the only thing I didn't like. Okay, number 4 is Mr. Monk on Wheels. And what happens is Mr. Monk gets shot, and in the leg. And so he's in a wheelchair, and he has his leg all bandaged up. And this is about this scientist, and it was his bicycle that was stolen, and the guy who, they went to get the bike because they promised they would return it, because Natalie helped the guy. He fell off his bike, and she helped him back on it. And so basically she helped him take it. She didn't know he was taking, she thought it was his bicycle. And so anyway, he stole it, and it was the scientist bike. And so she promised she'd get it back. And when they went to the boy's apartment, he shot Mr. Monk in the leg. And so the whole series, or whole episode, was Natalie pushing Mr. Monk up in San Francisco Hill, one of them. And if you know San Francisco, the hills are very steep. And so she's straining, and she's just a skinny girl, but she is pretty strong. And just everything, she's got to help him, because when he moves on his own, he touches the wheels, which have touched the pavement. So he'd have to stop every 2 seconds and wipe his hands with a wipe. So, I mean, it was just awful. He was horrible to her the whole time. And anyway, it's a very creative mystery, and it all boils down to a bicycle lock. And it's a lock that you can input these code into, and the only way that you can unlock it is that you have to know the code. And you punch it in, and then it unlocks. I didn't know they had locks like that. I'd like to check that out, because this back in 2008, 2009. Well, I mean, I can't think today. I didn't know they even had this kind of thing. And then they had the scientist was working on one thing he was doing was a square tomato, and Mr. Monk loved that because, you know, you have a perfect tomato with perfect edges. And so, but anyway, it's very, very creative and simple in a way. Okay, my number 3 episode is Mr. Monk Makes the Playoffs. And this featured Bob Costas, you know, very famous sports pundit and announcer. And it was about a football team in San Francisco, not the 49ers. And it was about he was the, what do you call it? I'll just call him the replacement quarterback. It wasn't the real quarterback, the main guy. He was the replacement. He disappears, and what happens is he has a playbook. They each have a playbook, and it's a binder, a small thin binder full of the plays of the week that we're going to use. And while he's in partying with this girl, the limo driver takes all the pages and he copies them all. And he has to hurry, and he puts the pages back in the original binder where they're all out of order. So it's all based on this playbook, and the playbook the copy is given to the coach of the opposing team. And so Mr. Monk, he gets free tickets and an all-access pass, means he can go to the locker room anywhere. everything is included, and he could take somebody, he takes the captain, and so all these things happen. That the limo driver kills the replacement quarterback, and another mystery is the chauffeur uses gasoline. He pours it into somebody's grill, and they start the grill, and there's this huge explosion, and it could have killed that guy, and it didn't. And so he and Monk, while the captain's in watching the game, and they keep going back and forth. They're going to both go see the game, and then Monk thinks of something else, and he leaves and comes back, and he leaves and comes back. Finally, the captain goes and watches it with Bob Costas, because they get to sit up in the booth where he's announcing the game. And so anyway, Mr. Monk has to figure out these two mysteries, which are both related, and the dead quarterback is actually in the parking lot with a wig and makeup on in the middle of everything, right out in the open, but everybody thinks he's just drunk. He's passed out. Okay, my number 2 episode is Mr. Monk and the Genius. And this is about another guy who's really smart. He's a chess person, a chess master. He's won tournaments all over the world. I have to take a drink. And his wife comes to Monk and Natalie and saying that he's going to kill her. He's been telling her he's going to kill her. And she ends up getting killed, but he's out of country. He's not even there. So they're trying to figure out how he did it. There's no evidence to prove that he did it. So it's one kind of genius versus another kind of genius. And the guy who played the genius was really good. And what was funny, we think, oh, well, Monk learns how to play, because he's so smart, he learns how to play chess in 2 seconds. And it's so, he ends up playing the chess master. Well, he did play him, but he wasn't anything, didn't do anything out of the ordinary. It was just all about the way he thinks about the crime. And he figures out how he did it. And so he beat the chess master. And then the last one is number 1, and it's Mr. Monk is underwater. And I really had to think, because, like I said, these episodes are not outstanding for the most part. Not really. Not like last season. And this is really good, because what happens is a friend of Natalie's husband and Natalie, he's in the military, he's a seaman, he's one of the officers on a sub. They don't know that. He just says he's on a boat, because they don't call a submarine a sub, they call it a boat. And his friend, apparently, looks like his friend committed suicide on the boat. He shot himself in the head or something. Well, anyway, he doesn't believe it. And there was also alcohol in his breath or something, and or alcohol smell on him. And he hadn't had anything to drink in a couple of years, or maybe 5 years, but he hadn't had a drink in a long time. And so he didn't understand, so he thought his death was suspicious. So he asked Monk to come on the boat. Well, he's very uneasy, of course. He doesn't like being on any boat of any kind. And then he finds out it's a sub, and he has to climb below. It's a very difficult thing for him. And Natalie convinces him, and he says for the guy to set a timer, and he would be in the sub for like 5 minutes, and then he's going to come back out. He's going to check out the crime scene. Well, they end up, they had some kind of a war games alert or something, and so the sub had to take off, and it took off with Monk and Natalie on there. Well, Monk about had a breakdown, and he kind of did, because what he did was, to cope, he saw his psychiatrist, Dr. Bell, there with him, and he would talk to him, and everybody else was like, who are you talking to? And I'm talking to Dr. Bell. And so they know he's got these idio what do you call it, syncrasies, where he's afraid of the water, he's afraid of being on a boat, he's afraid of all this stuff. And they saw him do, but when they were diving, he was having a breakdown. He wanted to get out, and he was trying to fight everybody to get out of the sub, and so they understood that he was a little bit cuckoo. And but anyway, he just imagined that Dr. Bell was sitting there with him, and he would talk with him, and it was like, and he was there, the actor was there, but nobody else could see him. So he figured it out. It was very complicated, but simple mystery. And he makes it through the whole ordeal. I thought it was really good. Psychiatrist did a really good job. And the villain was really bad. And then Natalie, of course, the guy liked her. And what bugged Marco was that it was kind of like a Hallmarkian type of thing with them. But Natalie wasn't into him because she's still thinking about her husband. And so that was it. But I thought it was an all-around good mystery and a good show. It had a lot of different things, but overall the season, like I said, was mixed bag. And
what's your food review?
Oh God, a mixed review. Oh, what would that be? Well, this would have to be. It's like. We just had Easter dinner, and we had ham and cheesy potatoes and green beans and rolls, and then the cake. I messed up on the cake. I did not. I forgot the eggs, and it still worked out, but it was. What happens is eggs give it a cake. It gives it some puff and substance. And when you don't have the egg, it's kind of flat, and it wasn't as puffy and what would you call it, airy. It was thicker and wasn't puffy. And so I would say since it was a mixed bag, so there were things about it that were, the green beans were okay, but I should have put, to make this homegrown green beans. So, you're cutting two ends off, and you might cut them in half, and you have to boil them for like 7 minutes, but you want something in there. So I should have put little pieces of ham in there, and which I did the second night, because we have it for like 3 nights. Variations of the dinner, of like a holiday dinner, and so it's like a mixed bag. So it was like our Easter dinner. It was a mixed bag of stuff. So it's still the series, even though it wasn't completely outstanding. It's still the ideas that they come up with, ordinary subjects and things like the lottery and stealing a bicycle and the playbook and the football episode and the what else would be a good thing? The bully, which was a twin, and was a different way to have a show feature a twin, which they really weren't twins. It was I could tell they had her, had somebody else the back of them, and they do trick things with the camera. It's still creative, and I really appreciate it, because some of the stuff that we've watched that are of the last few years have been so bad, and this is just so much more quality. It's very high quality, and Marco says the last season, because he's seen the whole series, says it's going to be terrible.
Safi, just wait until you watch it.
And he says just wait till I watch it. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, just from my point of view, this season was a mixed bag. It wasn't outstanding. So, and I think another thing too, when this Dr. Kroger, the guy who played Dr. Kroger, he died, I think it threw them, and they were off their game. And something like that. I mean, maybe they were considering having him around for the entire time. I don't know why they wouldn't. Because like I said, a therapist, one that you really care about, who listens, and they've been seeing him for years, I would think they would have had him stick around for the whole series. And so I imagine when he died, it was a very big blow to them. And they liked him. He's a likable person, too, I could tell. And so that's a big blow to them. And it's good. I mean, they were lucky they could write themselves up as much as they could. And they found that guy. I thought he was okay. I thought he did a great job. And so, anyway, that's it. And we'll be coming up with more things later on. And Marco always he's been a little bit sick lately, but he'll have more videos because he does this more on a regular basis than I do. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.